Very good morning to all of you. Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible to all of you? So my request to all of you, please keep your mobile on silent mode. See, sometimes what happens, small kids are shouting on the back, so my voice won't be audible. So today we are going to start with volume 3, head, neck and face. So in this volume, the first topic, which is very important topic for your examination also, we are going to talk for skull. So you must know the definition of skull. Scalp is soft tissue covering over calvaria. The calvaria is skull cap. Over your skull cap, what the soft tissue layers are there, those layers form this your skull. Now, when you see this skull, boundaries of skull, the boundaries of skull, if you can make out this screen picture, posteriorly it is bounded by the superior nuchal line. Posteriorly you have superior nuchal line on the skull, if you remember, and anteriorly you have supraorbital margin. This is the supraorbital margin. So anteriorly your skull is from your supraorbital margin. Posteriorly you go to this superior nuchal line, and laterally you have superior temporal line. These line what you can make out, these are the superior temporal line. So this area is hair bearing area on your skull. So as the scalp is made up by 5 letters, SCALP. So the 5 layers are there in the skull. S for skin, C for close network of subcutaneous tissue, A for aponeurosis. Still I can hear some disturbance. Please keep your mobile on silent. So L for loose connective tissue and P for pericranium. So these are the 5 layers. Now you see once again the boundaries of skull. So this hair bearing area, this is the skull, and this area is forehead. Okay, this is the forehead, which is common for skull and the face. Now I told you these 5 layers of the skull. So we are going to start with the first layer. The first layer of skull is the skin. So if you see the skin of the skull, it is quite thick, and skin is adherent to the second layer, that is closed network of subcutaneous tissue and the galea aponeurotica. These 3 layers are closely adherent to each other. The skin, if you see all over the body, in some part your skin is thick, like on your palms, on your soles, but somewhere it is quite thin, like your eyelids. So here on the skull, the skin is quite thick. Now this skin contains hairs, that skin contains sebaceous gland, and it contains sweat gland. The sweat gland are responsible for secretion of the sweat. The sebaceous gland, they are responsible for the secretion of sebum. The sebum is a sticky material. Now here, it's very interesting, especially for the girls. You are worried about your hairs, hair fall. Up to 100 hair falling per day is considered to be the normal. So you should not be worried about when your hair falls down, because our body has the system for regeneration of the hair. New hair will grow. So if the new hair growth is there, then there is nothing to worry for the hair fall. In case when you have some hormonal problem, some nutrition problem and other problem, then there are chances of losing the hair. Otherwise there is no problem. So that's about the hair. Then glands, sebaceous and sweat gland are there. Then when you see the second layer, closed network of subcutaneous tissue, in the second layer you have the tissue which are dense. Okay, these are quite thick, dense tissue made up by the fibers also, and this layer contains cutaneous, subcutaneous vessels and subcutaneous nerves are there. And this layer connects the upper layer, that is the skin, with its lower layer, that is the aponeurosis. Now when you come to the third layer, that is aponeurosis. If you remember, the aponeurosis is thickened deep fascia. I keep on telling you, whenever I come across, it is thickened deep fascia. So thickened deep fascia, when it give attachment to the muscle also, we call it aponeurosis. So on this third layer, you have Galea aponeurotica. So I'll show you this layer also. You see, these are the 5 layers. Now first layer I told you it contain. Now this Galea aponeurotica, it extends from external occipital protuberance. Posteriorly, you have a protruded part, that is the external occipital protuberance. You have the highest nuchal line, and when you come to the front, it is mixed with this your tissue, soft tissue. And on the side here you have zygomatic arch. So that is the attachment of Galea aponeurotica. Now Galea aponeurotica gives attachment to the 2 muscle. What are those 2 muscle? This muscle, if you can make out on the screen, this is the frontalis muscle. And if you can make out this muscle, this is occipitalis muscle. So occipitofrontalis, it is also known as the occipitofrontalis. Now frontalis muscle and occipitalis muscle, they are inserted into Galea aponeurotica. Their insertion is common. When you study any muscle, you have to study origin, insertion, nerve supply and action. So origin of occipitalis muscle, you have this your superior nuchal line. Then frontal muscle origin, it do not have bony attachment, it is attached to the subcutaneous tissue. But insertion of both these muscle, they are inserted into Galea aponeurotica. The nerve supply for occipitalis muscle, it is posterior auricular muscle, and for frontalis muscle, it is this branch of the facial nerve. Now the action of this muscle, when these muscle contract, you can make the wrinkle on your forehead, horizontal wrinkle on the forehead. So that's about the muscles of the skull. So you have only 2 muscles. The student who are not able to see this lecture, for them will have your YouTube day after tomorrow. This will be there on the YouTube also. So you can make out on the YouTube also. Next, after this third layer, we have loose connective tissue. Below this third layer, the next layer is the loose connective tissue. So loose connective tissue, as the name indicates, these are the loose tissue, but this layer is again very important. This is known as dangerous layer of the skull. Why do we call it dangerous layer of the skull? Because this layer contains imagery vein. So you must know what are the imagery vein. Imagery veins are those veins. Please don't shout. It's my lecture. You keep your mobile on silent. Okay, people are listening your voice more than my voice. Okay, so please, my request is to keep your mobile on silent mode. So I was telling you about the imagery vein, the vein which connect extracranial, outside of the skull, extracranial veins with the intracranial, which are inside of the skull. So they are known as imagery vein. So what is the importance of these veins? Because these are the communicating vein. So if any infection is there on the skull, and if it cannot be treated, then infection may go from outside of the cranial cavity to the inside of the cranial cavity through the imagery vein, and once it goes inside the cranial cavity, there you have very important meninges and brain, then it can be dangerous. That's why the 4th layer is known as dangerous layer of the skull. Now the last layer is pericranium. The pericranium is the layer which covers the bone. Outer covering of the bone is known as pericranium. So it covers the bone, and over the suture, it enters from outside to inside. Through the suture, pericranium enter inside of the skull and it form the endocranium, and that continue with the dura mater. So that's about these 5 layers of skull. Now next we come to the blood supply and nerve supply. For blood supply of the skull, when you see the blood supply means arterial supply and venous drainage. So blood supply of the skull, arterial supply, we have the branches of external as well as internal carotid artery. So for examination purpose, you have this diagram. So I was telling you about blood supply. For blood supply of scalp, you have supratrochlear artery, you have supraorbital artery, and you have superficial temporal artery. The supratrochlear and supraorbital, these two are the branches of ophthalmic artery. And ophthalmic artery is a branch of internal carotid artery. And the superficial temporal artery, it's a branch of external carotid artery. So now what is the significance of telling you about internal and external carotid artery? Scalp has got rich blood supply. It is supplied by both the branches of external as well as internal carotid artery. So in case of blockage of blood supply, if one artery gets blocked, the other can compensate. So it is supplied by internal carotid branches that's from inside of the skull and external carotid that lie outside of the skull. So these three are in front of the auricle, ear. So what you need to draw the diagram, you have to make a circle, and on the side in the middle you have auricle or the ear. So three arteries are in front of the ear and two behind the ear. Behind the ear you have posterior auricular artery and occipital artery. These two are the branches of external carotid artery. So that is about the blood supply of your scalp. Now nerve supply of scalp. That's again important for 5 marks question. Now scalp has got rich nerve supply. In front of ear, if you see, there are 5 nerves, and behind the ear, if you see, there are 5 nerves. So first we are going to see in front of the ear 5 nerves. In front of the ear 5 nerves, out of that 4 are sensory and 1 is motor. Behind the ear also you have 4 are sensory and 1 is motor. When I say word sensory, it means the nerve which carries sensation. It carries the sensation of the skin of the skull. And when I call motor, which supplies to the muscle. So in front of ear, you have the muscle that is frontalis muscle. So sensory nerves are basically the branches of trigeminal nerve. In skull, the nerve supply in front of ear, the sensation are carried by the trigeminal. If you remember, the trigeminal means 3. You have 3 branches, ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular. So these branches supplies to the skin of face as well as skin of the skull. So here first just close to the midline you have supratrochlear, then later to that you have supraorbital. So supratrochlear and supraorbital nerve, they are the branches of frontal nerve, and the frontal nerve is the branch of ophthalmic nerve, which is again the branch of trigeminal nerve. When you see the zygomaticotemporal nerve, the zygomaticotemporal nerve is a branch of zygomatic nerve, which is a branch of maxillary nerve, and maxillary nerve is also the branch of trigeminal nerve. Then you have auriculotemporal nerve, which is a branch of mandibular nerve. So in this way, 4 sensory nerves are branches of trigeminal nerve. Then only 1 motor nerve in front of the ear, that is temporal branch of facial nerve. So temporal branch of facial nerve is the motor nerve for the skull in front of ear. Now behind the ear same 5 nerves are there. Out of that 4 are sensory and 1 is motor. The 4 sensory nerve, they are branches of cervical plexus. C2, C3 and C4 is the root value of those nerves, and 1 motor nerve is there. That motor nerve is posterior auricular branch of facial nerve. Posterior auricular branch of the facial nerve, that is the motor nerve. That supplies occipitalis muscle. Now these nerve are greater auricular nerve, then you have lesser occipital nerve, you have greater occipital nerve and third occipital nerve. So as I told you, they are the branches of cervical plexus. Now these nerve carry the sensation of skull behind the ear. So the only motor nerve behind the ear is posterior auricular branch of facial nerve. Now we'll see in another diagram. Same thing. If you see here the blood supply. So you see the artery here, you have supratrochlear and supraorbital. Here you have supratrochlear, supraorbital, you have superficial temporal. Behind you have posterior auricular and then you have occipital. So red color are the arteries and blue color are the veins. The venous drainage of skull, it is common for venous drainage of the face as well as skull. So in next lecture when we'll do the face, then venous drainage of the face we will study. Same will be the venous drainage of skull. Now nerve supply. I told you in the diagram which you can draw in examination, but to understand, if you see the nerve supply here also, you can make out supratrochlear. This one is the supratrochlear, supraorbital. This is supraorbital. Then you have auriculotemporal, you have zygomatic-temporal. So in front of the ear and behind the ear, you can make out the branches of this which supplies to the skull. These are branches of trigeminal nerve. So you have branches of ophthalmic nerve, supratrochlear and supraorbital. Then you have zygomatic-temporal, that's a branch of maxillary nerve. Auriculotemporal, that is a branch of mandibular nerve. So ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular, they are the branches of trigeminal nerve. So in general, trigeminal nerve is the sensory nerve for the skull in front of your ear. And behind the ear, in dissection, I will show you, you can identify. You have lesser occipital nerve, if you can make out. You have great auricular nerve. You have greater occipital nerve. You have third occipital nerve. So how to identify these nerves? You can make out sternocleidomastoid muscle. Here you have sternocleidomastoid. This arrow is there on sternocleidomastoid muscle. So the nerve which crosses over the sternocleidomastoid obliquely, that is great auricular nerve. Then the nerve which runs along with the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid, that is lesser occipital nerve. The nerve which lies in the middle here, this is third occipital nerve. And thickest most which pierces through trapezius, that is greater occipital nerve. So these four are sensory nerve of skull. So that is about the nerve supply of skull. So blood supply, nerve supply, this is the nerve supply. Now lymphatic drainage of the skull. Scalp is drained by the lymph node, occipital lymph node, cervical lymph node, mastoid lymph node, preauricular, postauricular and submandibular. So lymph node which are present over here or in front of ear, behind the ear, all lymph node, they drains the skull. So if you see in this diagram, you can make out these are posterior auricular lymph node, anterior auricular lymph node, submandibular lymph node, and then you have cervical lymph node. That is the lymphatic drainage of skull. Now finally we come to the applied anatomy of skull. Now scalp applied anatomy, one of the very important anatomy is black eye. As the name indicate, when the eye look black, black means dark, then we call it black eye. See what happened during trauma, during accident or blow injury on the skull or on the head, there will be collection of the blood in subaponeurotic space, in the space below the galea aponeurotica. Due to gravity, the blood will flow from that layer toward the orbit. And I told you the frontalis muscle do not have any bony attachment, so that blood will gravitate toward the orbit, and over the eyelid, this blood will be dark in color and it will give the appearance of the eye as black eye. So we call it black eye. So this is one of the applied anatomy of this skull. So this you can make out, this is the black eye. Now other than that, we have safety valve hematoma. Hematoma, when the blood comes out from blood vessel and it gets collected and it becomes hard, we call it hematoma. So in the children, especially when there is tear in the dura mater, and pericranium, that is the layer of the last layer of the skull, the blood from intracranial hemorrhage is the bleeding, communicate with the fourth layer through the line of fracture. So if there is any fracture, through the line of fracture, the intracranial blood can come out of extracranial. And normally in adult, when it happens, there are chances of compression, on the brain. But in this case, the cerebral compression do not dwell because of this safety valve hematoma. So that is one of the applied aspect of your skull. Now next, when you see when there is swelling, temporary swelling in the newborn baby, this condition, swelling is the edema, edematous condition is a portion of the skull. It is because of any interference in the venous drainage through the birth canal. So if the venous blood through the birth canal is obstructed, that can cause swelling over the skull. Okay, so that is also one of the applied aspect. Then caput succedaneum. caput succedaneum, and sphelohematoma. So these are the condition in newborn baby when there is discharge of the blood and it comes out and gives swelling like appearance on the skull, that is the sphelohematoma. Then I told you, other than that, the skull has got rich nerve supply as well as rich blood supply. So any injury of the skull, it takes less time to treat, less time to heal, because the blood supply is more and the healing will be rapid in case of skull. So the wound of the skull, they do not gap. The wound of the skull, they do not gap unless it is cut transversely. So when there is transverse cut, only then gap of the wound will be there. The reason being, only two muscles are there on the skull, frontalis and occipitalis. So due to contraction of the muscle, there will be gap. But if this wound or injuries are there other than the transverse on longitudinal or some sagittal side, then there won't be any wound of the skull. That is also the applied anatomy. Then other than that, I told you the healing. Normally if there is any cut on the body skin, we do suturing and the sutures are removed after 7 days. But in case of skull, when the sutures are there, when the stitching is done, we can remove the suture after 5 days. The reason being, scalp has got rich blood supply. I told you the scalp is supplied by both these branches of internal carotid artery as well as external carotid artery. So due to rich blood supply, the healing will be rapid, the healing will be fast. So that is one of the applied aspect of skull. Then sebaceous cyst. I told you the first layer of skull. The first layer of skull is the skin, and skin has got abundance of sebaceous gland. Lot of sebaceous glands are there. So sebaceous gland normally secrete the sebum that keep your layer of the skin moist. So due to blockage of secretion of sebum due to any region can cause a soft swelling. That soft swelling is known as sebaceous cyst. Word cyst means soft swelling. So this is the sebaceous cyst that can be treated with the surgery. Then lacerated wound, cut wound and avulsed portion. The part or the tissue which comes out from the skin, normally if it occurs in the other part of our body other than the skull, we cut away that avulsed portion, the portion which comes out from the skin, and then we do the suturing. But in this case of the skull, the avulsed portion, the portion which comes out from the skin, that portion is kept back to the skin and then skin is sutured. Because the avulsed portion is taken up, it heals also, and because of the rich blood supply, avulsed portion need not to be cut. So this is also the applied aspect. You see, this is the avulsion of avulsed portion which comes out. So we can keep it back and we can do the suturing. So that's all about your skull. So scalp is over. Our next topic, next time when we will have class, we will be having face and lacrimal apparatus. So you read and come.